The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with noise. 12 different alien species sat in their special areas, each thinking they were better than all the others. The air smelled strange, mixing the scents of creatures from different worlds. Some breathed water, others needed special gases, but all of them shared one thing. They believed they ruled the galaxy. Ambassador Kexthul from the planet Zephyr walked to the center of the room. His forearms moved in a pattern that his people used when something was very important. His blue skin had dark spots that showed he was worried. The other aliens barely looked at him as he prepared to speak. "Important members of the council," Kexthul said, his voice coming through the translation machines. "I have come here with news about a species called humans. They live on a planet called Earth in the Sol system. My scouts have been watching their world for 3 years. These creatures are not like anything we have seen before." A sound like angry insects came from Queen Zelandra of the hive species. Her 6 legs clicked on the floor as she moved. "What makes them different, Zephyrian? Do they have better technology than us? Are they smarter? What could worry the Council about creatures who cannot even travel faster than light?" Kexthul's eyes became darker. "No, they do not have our technology. They are not smarter than us. But I have seen something much more dangerous. These humans never give up. They never surrender. When they are trapped, when they are outnumbered, when facing death, they become more dangerous, not less." The council chamber filled with laughter. The crystal beings from Nexus Prime made sounds like breaking glass. The water creatures from the deep world sent bubbles through their tanks. Even the serious metal beings from Iron Gate made clicking sounds that meant they found something funny. Trade Minister Voxmar was so fat he could barely fit in his chair. He laughed until he wheezed. "You want us to be afraid of a species because they are stubborn? That is your great warning?" Kexthul tried again, his voice getting desperate. "I watched them fight wars against each other for water, for land, for ideas, for pride. I saw them battle in places so hot it would cook most of our warriors before they could fight. They change, they survive, and they never stop hunting those who hurt them." "Enough of this silly talk," said Prime Director Nexelos. He was the leader of the council and his word was law. "If these humans are so dangerous, why have they not conquered their own star system? Why do they still fight each other instead of reaching for other worlds?" "Because no one has given them a reason to work together," Kexthul whispered. But his words were lost in the new wave of laughter. The vote happened quickly. Every species except the Zephyrians voted yes. Earth would be marked for resource collection and species integration. It was just another normal conquest of a primitive world, they told themselves. Kexthul stayed in the chamber after everyone else left. He looked up at the star maps floating above him. Somewhere in that darkness was a whole species about to learn they were not alone. And soon, the galaxy would learn what happens when you threaten everything humans care about. The council members went back to their ships, already planning how to divide Earth's resources. They talked about the humans like they were animals to be trained. Some species wanted the humans as workers. Others wanted to study them. A few wanted to eat them. None of them listened when Kexthul tried one more time to warn them. "You do not understand," he called out. "Humans do not think like us. When we are defeated, we surrender. When we are conquered, we serve. When we are outnumbered, we retreat. Humans do the opposite of all these things." But his words fell on deaf ears. The council had made up their minds. The fleet that left for Earth was massive. Thousands of ships from all 12 species, loaded with weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. The commanders were so confident they brought along celebration supplies for the victory party they planned to have on Earth's surface. Admiral Zethkar of the Void Hunters commanded the fleet. He had conquered 47 worlds in his career. Earth would be number 48 and probably the easiest. His information said humans had primitive weapons, small armies, and governments that could not agree on anything. "How long for the conquest?" asked his second-in-command. 3 days, Zethkar replied without hesitation. 2 days to defeat their militaries, 1 day to set up the processing centers. Then we can start shipping them to the labor worlds. The fleet moved through space toward Earth. Along the way, they picked up human radio and television signals. The aliens listened to human music, watched human movies, and studied human news. They learned about human wars, human art, human dreams, but they learned these things the wrong way. When they saw humans fighting each other, they thought it meant humans were weak and divided. When they saw human soldiers crying over fallen friends, they thought it meant humans were soft. When they saw human leaders trying to make peace, they thought it meant humans were afraid of conflict. They missed the important parts. They did not see that humans fighting each other still had rules about not hurting civilians. They did not understand that humans crying over friends meant they cared deeply about each other. They did not realize that human leaders making peace were the same leaders who could declare total war if needed. Most importantly, they did not understand what would happen when all of humanity had the same enemy. Back on Earth, strange things were happening in the sky. Telescopes around the world were picking up signals that did not belong there. Scientists were seeing objects moving in ways that broke the laws of physics as humans understood them. Dr. Helen Carter at the Deep Space Monitoring Station was the first to realize what was coming. She had been tracking the signals for 3 weeks, trying to understand their pattern. When she finally figured it out, her blood went cold. "Director Martin," she called to her boss, "you need to see this. We have a fleet of unknown objects heading directly for Earth. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Director Ben Martin looked at the data and felt his stomach drop. "How many objects?" "At least 3,000. Possibly more. And sir, they are big. Some of them are the size of cities." That night, emergency meetings were held in every capital city on Earth. For the first time in human history, every government agreed on something immediately. Whoever was coming, they were not coming in peace. President Lyndon Johnson sat in the White House Situation Room, looking at faces on screens from around the world. Russian President Volkov, Chinese Premier Li, British Prime Minister Davies, and dozens of other leaders all had the same expression: grim determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Johnson said, "it appears we are about to face humanity's first war with an alien species. I propose we put aside all our differences until this threat is ended." The response was immediate and unanimous. Agreed. In space, the alien fleet continued toward Earth. Admiral Zethkar reviewed the final intelligence reports. The humans had launched some satellites and were moving their military forces around, but nothing that worried him. Soon, Earth would join the thousands of other worlds under Council control. He had no idea that humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The warning had been given. The Council had laughed at it. Now both sides were about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. Earth was about to become a battleground that would change the galaxy forever. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, watching the alien ships fall from the sky like burning stars. 3 months had passed since the first message came to Earth. It was cold and mechanical, demanding that humans surrender immediately for something called integration into the Galactic Council expansion program. The answer from Earth had been simple and clear: come and take it. Now the alien fleet hung over major cities around the world like dark clouds. Morrison felt the weight of humanity's first war among the stars pressing down on him. In just a few weeks, something amazing had happened. Every country on Earth had united. Wars that had gone on for decades stopped overnight. Enemies became allies. The whole human race was now one army. "Sir," said Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station, "we are getting messages from the alien fleet. They are demanding surrender on all radio frequencies." Morrison nodded grimly. "Get me Admiral Martinez at Central Command, and connect me to President Johnson." The holographic display lit up, showing Admiral Carlos Martinez's tough face and President Lyndon Johnson's determined expression. Behind them, Morrison could see the organized chaos of the war room where humanity was planning its defense. "What is the situation, Captain?" Admiral Martinez asked with authority. 12 huge ships, each one the size of a small city. Hundreds of smaller ships. They are positioned over Washington, Moscow, Beijing, London, and 8 other major cities. No weapons fired yet, but they are making their message clear. President Johnson leaned forward. "Captain Morrison, I want you to understand something. 3 hours ago, I spoke with every world leader. We are united in this. Humanity will not bow to these invaders, no matter how advanced their technology is." "Ma'am, with respect," Morrison replied. "Their ships are beyond anything we have ever imagined. Our weapons might not even scratch them. Then we will find weapons that will," Admiral Martinez said firmly. "NASA, SpaceX, the Russians, the Chinese, everyone is sharing everything. Dr. Lisa Parker at Area 51 says she has theories about how their ships fly. If we can understand it, we can fight it." Suddenly, alarms started blaring across the Defender's bridge. "Captain," shouted Ensign Bobby Taylor from the sensor station. "The alien fleet is moving. They are starting to attack military bases around the world." Through the viewscreen, Morrison watched blue energy beams shoot down from the alien ships, hitting bases across the globe. But instead of the complete destruction everyone expected, the beams seemed designed to disable rather than destroy. They targeted power grids, communication arrays, and weapon systems with surgical precision. "They want us alive," Morrison realized. "They need us for something. Then we will make them sorry they made that choice," Admiral Martinez growled. "Captain, start Protocol 7. It is time to show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our home." As the transmission ended, Morrison turned to his crew. Every face showed the same thing, not fear but cold, calculating anger. The aliens had made a serious mistake. They had given humanity time to think, to plan, to work together. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. In underground bunkers, scientists were studying pieces of alien technology that had fallen from damaged ships. In hidden laboratories, engineers were trying to understand alien power sources. In military bases carved deep into mountains, strategists were planning humanity's response. The aliens had expected quick surrender from a primitive species. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before, a species that became more dangerous when threatened. Dr. Helen Carter worked frantically in her underground laboratory beneath CERN. Around her, the brightest minds from every nation studied captured alien materials. The technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had built, but it was still technology. And technology could be understood, copied, and improved. "The power source is some kind of controlled space folding," Carter explained to her team. "They are not moving faster than light. They are making space smaller. Can we copy it?" asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, formerly of the Japanese space program. "Maybe," Carter replied, "but it will take time we might not have." Above ground, the alien occupation was beginning. Hover tanks patrolled empty streets while their integration facilities started processing captured humans. But the aliens were making mistakes. They treated humans like every other species they had, conquered as individuals who would submit when separated from their groups. They did not understand that humans had spent thousands of years learning to work together even when apart. Secret codes hidden in normal radio broadcasts. Messages passed through graffiti on walls. Supplies moved through networks of ordinary people who had never been soldiers, but were willing to become them. In New York, former Marine Sergeant Lisa Kim led a group of resistance fighters through abandoned subway tunnels. They carried weapons that looked like nothing any military had produced. Alien energy rifles modified with human engineering. Powered by car batteries and controlled by video game controllers. "The processing center has a shift change every 8 hours, Kim whispered to her team. "They are getting careless, thinking we are beaten. Tonight we hit 3 facilities at the same time." Similar conversations were happening in every occupied city. The aliens controlled the surface, but humans owned everything below ground. Sewers, subway tunnels, basement networks, and hastily dug bunkers became the highways of human resistance. The aliens had studied human history and thought they understood human warfare. They saw the organized armies, the formal battles, the clear victories and defeats. But they missed the other kind of human war. The kind where ordinary people became soldiers, where every building could hide an enemy, where defeat only made the survivors more determined. Captain Morrison received reports from around the world as the first day of occupation ended. The official human military had been defeated in hours, but the real human military was just getting started. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Chen, "resistance cells in 47 cities have made contact. They have captured alien weapons, equipment, and in 3 cases, actual alien prisoners." "What have we learned from the prisoners?" Morrison asked. "That they are scared," Chen replied with a grim smile. "They expected us to give up. Instead, we are studying them the same way they planned to study us." The aliens had brought humanity a terrible gift. The knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that the universe was not a friendly place. But they had also given humanity something else. A common enemy that made every human conflict seem small and petty. In the depths of space, Admiral Zethkar reviewed the reports from Earth with growing confusion. The human governments had surrendered as expected. The human military had been defeated as planned. But somehow resistance was increasing instead of decreasing. How is this possible? he asked his intelligence officer. The humans appear to have no central command structure for their resistance, the officer replied. Each group operates independently, but they somehow coordinate their actions. Zethkar felt a chill of unease. In all his conquests, resistance had always followed predictable patterns. Defeat the leaders, and the followers would surrender. But humans seem to have no real leaders, or rather, every human could become a leader when needed. Double the patrols, Zethkar ordered. Increase security at all facilities, and send a message to the council. This conquest may take longer than expected. He had no idea that longer than expected would turn out to mean forever, and that the real war was just beginning. 6 months after the invasion, the aliens controlled the surface of Earth. Their hover tanks moved through empty streets while their integration, facilities processed captured humans for what they called cultural assimilation. But beneath the cities in abandoned subway tunnels, sewer systems, and hastily dug bunkers, humanity was learning to fight a different kind of war. Colonel Danny Webb crouched in a maintenance tunnel beneath New York City, studying blueprints spread across an old wooden crate. Around him, 24 resistance fighters waited in the darkness. They were former soldiers, police officers, firefighters, and ordinary people who had chosen to fight rather than surrender. The processing center has a shift change every 8 hours, Webb explained quietly. They are getting sloppy, thinking we are beaten. Tonight we hit 3 facilities at the same time. Sergeant Lisa Kim checked her weapon. It was a strange-looking rifle made from alien technology and human engineering. The weapon looked like nothing any military had ever produced, but it could punch holes through alien armor. Every resistance cell had learned to build these hybrid weapons from captured alien equipment and salvaged human materials. What about the civilians inside? Asked Dr. Peter Johnson, one of the city's few remaining doctors. Our intelligence says they are keeping them alive for experiments. We get them out, Webb replied firmly. All of them. That is what makes us different from these invaders. The resistance had learned much about their enemies during months of hidden warfare. The aliens called themselves the Council Enforcement Division. They were made up of 12 different species working together under something called the Galactic Council. They had better technology, but they were completely unprepared for the kind of war humans had perfected over centuries of fighting each other. Sir, whispered Private Janet Lewis from her position near the tunnel entrance. Movement above. Patrol pattern suggests they are changing their route. Webb smiled grimly. The aliens changed their tactics slowly, while humans evolved new ones every day. Every piece of captured equipment was taken apart and studied. Every weakness was found and exploited. Every loss was turned into knowledge for the next fight. Phase 1 teams move out, Webb commanded. Across the city, similar scenes played out. In Chicago, a team led by former Navy SEAL Rick Davis prepared to destroy the aliens' main communication hub. In Los Angeles, Captain Maria Santos worked with civilian computer experts who had figured out how to jam alien sensors. In every major city, the pattern was the same. Humans learning, adapting, fighting back. The aliens had expected quick surrender from a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each defeat and smarter with each loss. Every patrol that did not return, every facility that went silent, every successful rescue made them more nervous. But the resistance fighters knew this was just the beginning. The real war would start when humanity figured out how to take the fight beyond Earth's atmosphere, and in hidden laboratories around the world. The smartest people of the species were working on exactly that problem. Dr. Helen Carter worked 18 hours a day in the underground facility that had once been CERN. Around her, scientists from every country worked together, their old rivalries forgotten in the face of humanity's greatest challenge. The facility hummed with energy as they tested humanity's first attempts at faster-than-light travel. Space folding is stable, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the control station. We are getting consistent results across all test areas. Carter nodded, watching the data streams. 6 months of non-stop work, combining captured alien technology with humanity's most advanced science, had led to this moment. The breakthrough had come when they realized the aliens were not really traveling faster than light. They were folding space itself. Dr. Carter, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Patricia Hayes, the former Air Force officer who now commanded Earth's secret space program. How long until we can put it on a ship? The test model is ready, Carter replied. But Admiral, I must warn you that this is completely untested on a large scale. We do not know how human bodies will react to travel through folded space. We will find out, Hayes said simply. How many ships can we equip? Carter looked at her notes. Working around the clock, we can have engines ready for 12 ships within 2 months. But they will not be pretty. We are basically attaching our drive system to whatever we can find that can survive in space. In orbit around Earth, construction was already underway. The aliens' focus on controlling the surface had left them blind to humanity's activities in space. Using captured materials and salvaged parts, human engineers were building a fleet unlike anything ever imagined. The lead ship was taking shape in the shadow of the moon. Captain Tony Rodriguez, formerly of NASA, walked through its corridors with the same sense of purpose that had once driven explorers to cross unknown oceans. The ship, named the UES Vengeance, looked more like a floating weapons platform than a traditional spacecraft. How many crew? Asked Commander Kate Phillips, his second-in-command. Skeleton crew of 50, Rodriguez replied. We are not built for comfort or long missions. We are built to take the fight to them. Throughout the solar system, similar ships were being built at hidden facilities on Mars, in the asteroid belt, and in the outer system. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who understood they might not come home. But they also understood they were humanity's first step toward becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that would hunt its enemies across the stars. The Resistance had also learned something important about their enemies. The aliens were not evil in the way humans understood evil. They were not cruel for the sake of cruelty. They were simply used to being the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced. They treated humans the way humans might treat a new species of animal, as something to be studied, controlled, and used. This made them predictable. They followed rules and procedures. They had schedules and hierarchies. They thought in terms of efficiency and logic. All of these things could be exploited by an enemy that was willing to break rules, ignore procedures, and think creatively. In the tunnels beneath Paris, Resistance leader Marie Dubois led her team through a daring raid on an alien supply depot. The aliens had established a regular schedule for deliveries, assuming that humans could not threaten their heavily guarded facilities. They were wrong. The supply convoy arrives every third day at exactly the same time, Dubois explained to her team. They follow the same route, use the same security protocols. They think we are too primitive to threaten them. The raid was a complete success. The Resistance fighters struck fast and hard, then disappeared into the tunnel networks before the aliens could respond. They captured enough equipment to arm 3 more Resistance cells and gathered intelligence about alien supply lines throughout Europe. Similar raids were happening on every continent. The aliens found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their experience. Their enemies had no uniforms, no ranks, no central command. Every human could be a soldier. Every building could hide weapons. Every day brought new attacks from unexpected directions. But the real surprise came when the aliens tried to use human prisoners to gather intelligence about the Resistance. They discovered that humans had an unusual ability to lie convincingly, even under interrogation. Worse, the humans seemed to enjoy feeding them false information that led alien patrols into carefully prepared ambushes. Admiral Zethkar reviewed the latest casualty reports with growing alarm. His forces had lost more equipment in the past month than in his previous 10 conquests combined. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence staff. These creatures barely have spaceflight. Their weapons are primitive. Their military was defeated in the first day. Sir, replied his intelligence officer nervously, it appears we defeated their formal military, but not their actual military. Every human seems capable of becoming a soldier when needed. Zethkar felt something he had never experienced in his long career. Doubt. Perhaps the Zephyrian ambassador had been right to warn about these humans. Perhaps they were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Increase security at all facilities, Zethkar ordered. Double the patrols, and send another message to the Council. We may need reinforcements. In the depths of Earth, humanity was preparing a surprise that would change everything. The real war was about to begin. Dr. Helen Carter stood before the massive holographic display in the underground facility that had once been the world's most advanced physics laboratory. Around her, scientists from every nation worked side by side. their old competition forgotten in the face of humanity's greatest challenge. The facility hummed with barely controlled energy as humanity's first faster-than-light engine underwent its final tests. "Space folding is stable," reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the control station. "We are reading consistent quantum tunneling across all test areas." Carter nodded, her eyes fixed on the data streams flowing across dozens of monitors. 6 months of constant work, combining captured alien technology with humanity's most advanced physics, had led to this moment. The breakthrough had come when they realized the aliens were not actually traveling faster than light. They were folding space-time itself, making the distance between 2 points smaller. "Dr. Carter," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Patricia Hayes, the former Air Force officer who now commanded Earth's hidden space program. "How long until we can install it on a ship?" "The prototype is ready for testing," Carter replied. "But Admiral, I must stress that this is completely untested at full scale. We do not know how human biology will react to passage through folded space." "We will find out," Hayes said simply. "How many ships can we equip?" Carter consulted her tablet computer. "Working around the clock, we can have engines ready for 12 vessels within 2 months. But they will not be pretty. We are essentially strapping our drive system onto whatever we can find that is space-worthy." In orbit around Earth, construction was already underway. The aliens' focus on surface control had left them blind to humanity's orbital activities. Using captured materials and salvaged components, human engineers were building a fleet unlike anything ever imagined. The ships looked like nothing any navy had ever produced. Part warship, part research vessel, part improvised weapon platform. The lead ship was taking shape in the shadow of the moon, hidden from alien sensors by the lunar mass. Captain Tony Rodriguez, formerly of NASA, walked through its corridors with the same sense of purpose that had once driven explorers to cross uncharted oceans. The vessel, christened the UES Vengeance, looked more like a floating weapons platform than a traditional spaceship. "How many crew?" asked Commander Kate Phillips, his designated second-in-command. "Skeleton crew of 50, Rodriguez replied. "We are not built for comfort or long-term missions. We are built to carry the fight to them." Throughout the solar system, similar vessels were under construction at hidden facilities. On Mars, engineers worked in underground caves to build ships designed for hit-and-run attacks. In the asteroid belt, miners converted their equipment into weapons platforms. In the outer system, research stations became military bases. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who understood they might not be coming home, but they also understood that they were humanity's first step toward becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that would hunt its enemies across the stars. The breakthrough in faster-than-light travel was just one part of humanity's preparation. In laboratories around the world, other teams were working on weapons, communications, and life support systems. Every piece of alien technology that fell into human hands was studied, copied, and improved. Dr. Lisa Parker led the weapons development team at a facility hidden beneath the Nevada desert. Her team had made a discovery that excited and terrified them in equal measure. Human weapons technology, while primitive compared to alien energy weapons, had advantages the aliens had not expected. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and high-speed projectiles, Parker explained to Admiral Hayes during a secure video conference. But they are not prepared for our chemical explosives or our nuclear weapons. "Nuclear weapons in space?" Hayes asked with concern. "Modified nuclear weapons," Parker corrected. "We have figured out how to shape the explosion to penetrate their shields. A single warhead can disable one of their capital ships." Hayes felt a chill of anticipation. Humanity was about to change the balance of power in this war. Meanwhile, the resistance on Earth continued to gather intelligence about their enemies. The aliens had made a critical error in their occupation strategy. They treated humans like every other species they had conquered, as individuals who would submit when separated from their groups. They did not understand that humans had spent thousands of years learning to work together even when apart. In the occupied cities, human collaborators who appeared to be helping the aliens were actually gathering intelligence for the resistance. Every alien facility was mapped. Every weakness was noted. Every schedule was recorded. The aliens believed they were winning the war on Earth. In reality, they were being studied like laboratory animals by an enemy they had underestimated. Colonel Danny Webb coordinated resistance activities from a command center hidden beneath the ruins of the Pentagon. His network now covered every continent, with cells operating independently but sharing information through an encrypted communication system that the aliens had not detected. Status report from all sectors. Webb requested during the daily briefing, European cells report successful strikes on 17 facilities this week, reported his intelligence officer. Asian cells have captured 3 intact alien vehicles. African cells have established contact with alien deserters. Deserters? Webb asked with interest. Yes, sir. Apparently not all alien species are completely loyal to the Council. Some individuals are willing to provide information in exchange for protection. This was an unexpected development. The aliens were not a unified force. They were an alliance of different species with different motivations. Some were true believers in the Council's mission. Others were just following orders. A few were beginning to question whether conquering humanity had been a good idea. Back in space, the UES Vengeance completed its final tests. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching his crew prepare for humanity's first interstellar mission. They were not explorers or diplomats. They were warriors with a single purpose: to take the war to the enemy. Sir, reported Lieutenant Jason White from the communications station, we are receiving updates from Earth Command. The Resistance has successfully captured an intact alien communication array. Rodriguez smiled. For months they had been fighting blind, unable to intercept alien communications or understand their larger strategy. Now they would know where to find the enemy fleets that had conquered Earth. Patch me through to Admiral Hayes, Rodriguez commanded. As the transmission connected, Rodriguez felt the weight of history settling around him. Humanity was about to take its first steps into the wider galaxy, not as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors with a single burning purpose. The aliens had brought war to humanity's doorstep. Now humanity was going to return the favor. The real war was about to begin, and it would be fought on humanity's terms. Dr. Carter completed the final calculations for the fold space drive. The mathematics were beautiful in their complexity, but the implications were terrifying in their simplicity. If her calculations were correct, a human ship could appear anywhere in the galaxy within days rather than centuries. Admiral, Carter reported to Hayes, the drive is ready. But I want to stress again that we are venturing into unknown territory. We have no idea what we might encounter out there. Hayes looked at the star charts displayed around them. Somewhere in that vast darkness were the worlds that had sent ships to conquer Earth. Soon, they would learn what it meant to be hunted by a species that never forgot and never forgave. Dr. Carter, Hayes replied, humanity has always ventured into unknown territory. That is what we do. The only difference this time is that we are not going as explorers. We are going as predators. The age of human expansion was about to begin, but unlike every other species in the galaxy, humans would not be expanding to explore or colonize. They would be expanding to hunt. And once the hunt began, it would never end. The Zephyrian battlecruiser Eternal Dominion drifted in the empty space between star systems, its crew confident in their superiority. Commander Velthar reviewed the reports from the human homeworld with satisfaction. The integration process was moving along smoothly, with only minor resistance from scattered primitive groups that would soon be eliminated. Commander, reported the sensor operator, his 4 eyes focused on the displays. We are detecting an unusual reading on long-range sensors. Unknown signature approaching our position. Velthar's attention shifted to the tactical display. After 18 cycles of military service, he had learned not to ignore anomalies. His species had survived by being careful, even when they seemed to be winning. Classification? Unknown, sir. The signature is strange. It appears to be using space folding technology, but the pattern is unlike anything in our databases. Impossible, Velthar hissed, his skin changing color to show his disbelief. The humans lack faster-than-light capabilities. Our intelligence confirmed this repeatedly before the invasion. The sensor operator's skin began to shift through the color spectrum that indicated extreme stress among his people. Sir, the signature is accelerating. Estimated arrival in 15 time units. All stations to alert status. Velthar commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge. Prepare defensive systems and contact the Council fleet. If this is some unknown species entering our territory, they will learn to respect Council authority. 8,000 kilometers away, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance as it dropped out of fold space. The sensation was indescribable, like being turned inside out and reassembled in the space between heartbeats. Around him, his crew was fighting off the disorientation that seemed to be an unavoidable side effect of their crude translation drive. "Status report," Rodriguez called out, forcing his voice to remain steady despite the nausea that threatened to overwhelm him. "All systems functional," reported Chief Engineer Bill Morrison, his hands flying over his control panels. "Drive core is stable, weapons are online, and we have target acquisition." On the main screen, the alien battlecruiser appeared as a gleaming cylinder 2 kilometers long. Its surface was covered with weapon systems that could probably destroy the Vengeance with a single shot. But Rodriguez was not planning to give them that chance. "Commander Phillips, initiate attack pattern Alpha. All weapons, full spread." The Vengeance had been built with one purpose: to carry the maximum possible firepower in the smallest possible package. Its weapons were a mixture of human engineering and adapted alien technology. Nuclear-tipped missiles that could fold space to bypass shields, particle beams powered by miniaturized fusion reactors, and kinetic projectiles accelerated to a significant percentage of light speed. Velthar watched in disbelief as the primitive vessel opened fire. The weapon signatures were completely unknown, some form of crude but effective technology that his shields were not designed to counter. The first missiles seemed to simply disappear, then reappear inside his ship's defensive perimeter. "Return fire," he ordered, his voice rising with panic. "Destroy that vessel immediately." But the human ship was already moving, its drive system allowing it to make impossible maneuvers that defied conventional space combat theory. It would fold space to appear behind the battlecruiser, fire a devastating attack, then fold away before the aliens could return effective fire. "Sir," shouted the damage control officer, his voice barely audible over the sound of explosions throughout the ship. "We are losing primary systems across all sections. These weapons are designed specifically to counter our defensive measures." Velthar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career: fear. Not just for his ship, but for the implications of what he was witnessing. If the humans had developed this technology, if they had managed to reverse engineer Council systems and create their own versions, then everything the Council believed about this war was wrong. "Send immediate message to the Council fleet," Velthar commanded as another human attack tore through his ship's hull. "Emergency priority. The humans have achieved faster-than-light capability. They are not the primitive species we believed. They are hunting us." The message was transmitted just as the Vengeance's final attack broke the battlecruiser's spine. Velthar died still trying to understand how a species that had been conquered just months ago had managed to bring the war to him. Rodriguez watched the alien ship's death throes with grim satisfaction. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a brief star, then faded to nothing. "Message drone prepared, Captain," reported Lieutenant White. "Send it," Rodriguez ordered. The drone would carry a simple message back to Earth. The galaxy's true size was now known, and humanity had taken its first prey among the stars. But Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. The Vengeance had been designed for hit-and-run attacks, not prolonged combat. They had surprised one enemy ship, but soon the entire galaxy would be hunting them. "Set course for the next target," Rodriguez commanded. Intelligence from the captured alien communication array had provided them with the locations of 17 Council ships operating in nearby systems. Each one would be a chance to learn more about their enemies and test humanity's new weapons. The hunt had begun, and Rodriguez intended to make it memorable. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern repeated across multiple star systems. Human ships would appear without warning, strike with devastating efficiency, then vanish before enemy reinforcements could arrive. Each attack was different, testing new weapons, new tactics, new technologies. In the Proxima system, the UES Retribution used converted asteroid mining charges to crack open a Council supply ship. In the Wolf system, the UES Determination tested humanity's first energy weapons against alien armor. In the Vega system, the UES Defiance proved that human pilots could outmaneuver alien fighters in close combat. Each victory was small, but the psychological impact was enormous. The Council species had dominated the galaxy for centuries, confident in their technological superiority. Now they were learning what it meant to be hunted by an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere and strike without warning. Admiral Zethkar received the reports with growing alarm. 17 ships lost in 3 weeks, all to the same mysterious enemy. The attacks showed increasing sophistication and coordination. Worse, they were happening across a wide area of space, suggesting the humans had multiple ships operating independently. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence staff. Our reports from Earth indicate that human resistance is contained and decreasing. Sir, replied his chief intelligence officer nervously. It appears our reports from Earth may be incomplete. The humans may have been more successful at hiding their activities than we realized. Zethkar felt a chill of understanding. The humans had not been conquered at all. They had been learning, planning, preparing for this moment. Everything the Council believed about the war on Earth was wrong. Recall all ships to defensive positions, Zethkar ordered, and send an emergency message to the Council. We need to reevaluate everything we know about these humans. But it was too late for reevaluation. Across the galaxy, human ships were already moving toward their next targets. The war that the Council thought they had won was just beginning, and humanity was going to fight it on their own terms. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as they prepared for their next jump. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had found their purpose. They were not explorers or peacekeepers. They were hunters, and they had found prey worth hunting. Course laid in for the Centauri system, reported the navigator. Execute, Rodriguez commanded. As the Vengeance disappeared into fold space, it left behind only the wreckage of another Council ship and a message that would spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity was coming, and they would never stop hunting those who had threatened their home. The emergency session of the Galactic Council met in the highest security chamber, deep within the artificial moon that served as their seat of power. For the first time in 300 cycles, every member species was present, not by choice but by necessity. Fear had driven them together in a way that centuries of cooperation had not. Ambassador Kexthul of the Zephyrians stood at the central podium, his forearms trembling with barely contained emotion. Before him, holographic displays showed the wreckage of 43 Council vessels, warships that had been systematically hunted down and destroyed across 7 star systems in just 2 months. Honored Council, Kexthul began, his voice carrying the weight of grim vindication. I warned you about the humans. You chose to ignore that warning. Now witness the consequences of your arrogance. The displays shifted, showing tactical analyses of the human attacks. Each engagement followed the same terrifying pattern. A single human vessel would appear without warning, using space-folding technology that their best sensors could barely detect. It would strike with devastating efficiency, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. This is impossible, chittered Hive Queen Zelandra, her 6 legs clicking nervously on the chamber floor. Our intelligence reports clearly stated that the human homeworld has been pacified. Their primitive resistance cells have been scattered and contained. Your intelligence is wrong, Kexthul replied coldly, his skin displaying the dark patterns that showed his people's anger. The humans have not been conquered. They have been learning. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Different species argued in their native languages, while translation devices struggled to keep up. The crystalline beings from Nexus Prime chimed frantically, while the water-dwelling deep ones sent streams of agitated bubbles through their environmental tanks. Trade Minister. Voxmar's massive form shook as he accessed his personal databases. His species had grown wealthy by facilitating trade between council worlds, but now those trade routes were under attack. My shipping lanes have lost 62 vessels in the past cycle. The humans are targeting our supply routes with surgical precision. How is this possible? Demanded Council Prime Director Nexulos, his authority wavering for the first time in his long career. Our forces control their homeworld. We have their major population centers under direct administration. How can they be mounting attacks across multiple star systems? Kexthul activated another display, showing intelligence reports that had been filtering in from across council space. The information painted a picture that chilled even the most warlike council species. The humans never intended to hold their homeworld. They evacuated their scientists, their engineers, their military leadership. While we were congratulating ourselves on our easy victory, they were establishing hidden bases throughout their star system and beyond. The reports were terrifying in their implications. Humans had built manufacturing facilities in asteroid belts, hidden research stations in the outer darkness of their star system, and training camps on worlds thought to be uninhabitable. They had turned their entire species into a distributed military machine with one single purpose: revenge. Worse, Kexthul continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. They are learning from every engagement. Each attack shows improved technology, better tactics, deeper understanding of our weaknesses. They are not fighting to reclaim territory or negotiate terms. They are fighting to eliminate us entirely. The crystalline being from Nexus Prime chimed its confusion in harmonics that hurt to hear. Surely they must understand that they cannot win against the combined might of the Council. We have thousands of worlds, millions of ships, resources beyond counting. That is precisely why they will win, Kexthul replied, his voice carrying absolute certainty. You still think like conquerors. You think in terms of holding territory, controlling populations, maintaining supply lines. The humans think like hunters. They do not want to control the galaxy. They want to empty it of everyone who threatens their existence. The implications were staggering. A species that fought not for conquest but for extermination was something the Council had never encountered. Their entire military doctrine was built around forcing submission through superior firepower and advanced technology. But the humans were not trying to submit or be submitted to. They were trying to eliminate every trace of their enemies. Director Nexulos tried to regain control of the session. What losses are we actually facing? Give me numbers, not fear. The displays changed to show stark statistics. In 2 months, the humans had destroyed 43 warships, 78 support vessels, and 12 military installations. More importantly, they had disrupted trade routes, isolated forward bases, and forced the Council to pull back from dozens of systems to defend their core worlds. The economic impact is worse than the military losses, reported Economic Coordinator Thexval from the Trading Guild. Our member worlds are questioning whether the Council can protect them. 3 systems have already begun negotiating separate peace agreements with the humans. Separate peace? Nexulos was aghast. The humans have offered terms? No, Thexval replied quietly. The systems are offering to surrender unconditionally. They believe that cooperation with the humans is preferable to facing their wrath. The chamber fell silent. The idea that Council member worlds would choose surrender over resistance was unthinkable. Yet it was happening. Kexthul took control of the silence. There is something else you need to understand about these humans. They do not forget, and they do not forgive. Every species that participated in the invasion of their world is now marked for elimination. Every world that supplied ships or resources is a target. Every individual who supported the conquest is now being hunted. Surely they cannot track individual participation across thousands of worlds, asked Minister Gexelon of the Inner Worlds. Kexthul's expression was grim. They captured our communication networks months ago. They have access to every message, every order, every resource allocation related to their conquest. They know exactly who participated and to what degree. The silence that followed was deafening. Every member of the Council realized that they were not just facing military defeat. They were facing personal extinction. What do you recommend? Asked Director Nexulos, his voice barely audible. Kexthul looked around the chamber at the representatives of 12 species that had once ruled the galaxy with absolute confidence. Now they looked like prey animals who had just realized they were being stalked by predators. Pray, he said simply. Pray that they accept surrender when we offer it. Because if they do not within a few cycles, the Galactic Council will be nothing but a footnote in humanity's history of successful hunts. The vote to recall all fleets to defend Council space was unanimous. For the first time in their recorded history, the Galactic Council was retreating from a single species. Every ship, every resource, every defensive measure would be concentrated around their most important worlds. But as their fleets began the long journey home, human ships were already moving to intercept them. The humans had studied Council tactics for months. They knew where the fleets would go, what routes they would take, and how they would deploy their defenses. The hunt was spreading across the galaxy, and humanity was discovering that they had a natural talent for it. Every species that had mocked the Zephyrian warning was about to learn that some warnings should be taken seriously. In the depths of space, Captain Rodriguez received new orders from Earth Command. The target list had expanded again. No longer were they hunting individual ships. Now they were tasked with eliminating entire fleets. Set course for the Arcturus system, Rodriguez commanded. Intelligence indicates a major council fleet will be passing through in 3 days. As the Vengeance prepared for its next hunt, Rodriguez felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. The aliens had started this war by threatening everything humanity held dear. Now humanity would finish it by ensuring that threat never existed again. The galaxy was learning that there were predators, and there was prey. The Council had spent centuries believing they were predators. They had been wrong. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the command center of Titan Base, watching the holographic display that showed the positions of humanity's growing fleet. In the years since the first strike against the aliens, humanity had transformed from a conquered species to the galaxy's most feared predator. What had started as a desperate resistance had become a systematic campaign of elimination. Status report. Commander. Hayes addressed Commander Steve Turner, her chief of operations. We now have operational fleets in 23 star systems, Turner reported, his voice carrying the confidence of a military that had not lost a major engagement in months. Each fleet consists of between 8 and 15 vessels, all equipped with improved full-drive technology and enhanced weapon systems. Total active ships 187. Hayes nodded, studying the tactical display that covered an entire wall of the command center. The human fleet looked unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each ship was unique, built from whatever materials and technology could be acquired, salvaged, or stolen. They ranged from massive converted mining vessels bristling with weapons to sleek interceptors designed for hit-and-run attacks. The diversity was not an accident. Humanity had learned that standardization made fleets predictable, and predictable fleets could be defeated by enemies who understood their capabilities. By making every ship different, humanity ensured that their enemies could never fully prepare for what they would face. Casualty reports, Hayes asked, though she already knew the numbers would be good. 31 ships lost in the last quarter, Turner replied with appropriate solemnity. Every loss was mourned, even in victory. But we have eliminated over 400 council vessels, including 15 capital ships. The exchange ratio continues to improve as our crews gain experience. The human advantage was not just technological, it was philosophical. While the council species fought according to established military doctrine that had served them for centuries, humans improvised constantly. Every engagement taught them something new about their enemy's weaknesses, and every lesson was immediately shared across the entire fleet through quantum communication networks. Captain Rodriguez materialized in the holographic display, broadcasting from the bridge of the Vengeance somewhere in the Outer Rim territories. His ship showed the scars of dozens of battles, but his crew had become legendary among human forces. They had destroyed more enemy vessels than any other single ship. Admiral Hayes, Rodriguez reported, his image flickering slightly due to the enormous distance. We have intercepted Council communications regarding a major fleet movement. They are consolidating their remaining forces around their capital system. Analysis? Hayes asked, though she suspected she already knew what Rodriguez would say. They are terrified, Rodriguez replied with grim satisfaction. They are pulling back their expansion fleets, abandoning their forward positions, evacuating non-essential personnel from frontier worlds. For the first time in their history, the Council is fighting a purely defensive war. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. The psychological impact of humanity's campaign was proving to be as important as the military victories. The Council species had dominated the galaxy for centuries, confident in their technological superiority and organizational advantages. Now they were learning what it meant to be hunted by an enemy that refused to fight by established rules. Dr. Carter has completed analysis of the latest captured technology, Turner added, consulting his datapad. She believes we can improve our full drive efficiency by another 40%. More importantly, she thinks she can extend our operational range significantly. How significantly? Hayes asked with interest. Potentially unlimited, Turner replied, his voice carrying the excitement of someone who understood the implications. If her calculations are correct, we can reach any point in the galaxy within days rather than months. Distance will no longer be a factor in our operations. Hayes felt a chill of anticipation. The galaxy was vast, containing billions of star systems and trillions of inhabited worlds, but it was no longer large enough to hide humanity's enemies. Begin immediate implementation of the new drive systems, Hayes commanded, and prepare the fleet for Phase 3 operations. Phase 3 was humanity's endgame strategy, not just the destruction of the Council's military forces, but the systematic elimination of their capacity to threaten anyone ever again. It would require coordination across hundreds of star systems and the commitment of every human vessel, but it would ensure that the threat to Earth could never be repeated. The plan was elegant in its brutality. Rather than attempting to occupy Council worlds or negotiate surrender terms, humanity would simply eliminate every military asset, every shipyard, every weapons factory, and every research facility in Council space. The alien species could keep their worlds and their populations, but they would never again have the means to threaten other worlds. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell from the intelligence station, "we are receiving updates from our deep space reconnaissance missions. The Council is attempting to establish secret shipyards in the Galactic Rim territories." "Locations?" Hayes asked. 17 confirmed sites with an estimated 12 more under construction. They appear to be using automated systems to minimize the human intelligence footprint. Hayes turned to Turner. "Assign hunter-killer teams to each location. I want those shipyards eliminated before they can produce a single vessel." The systematic nature of humanity's war was unprecedented in galactic history. Most conflicts between spacefaring species involved territorial disputes, resource competition, or ideological differences that could eventually be resolved through negotiation or conquest. But humanity was not interested in any of these traditional outcomes. They were fighting a war of extinction, not to eliminate alien populations, but to eliminate their capacity for organized violence. It was a more complex and difficult goal than simple conquest, but it was also more permanent. Captain Susan Williams commanded the UES Relentless, one of the newest ships in the human fleet. Her vessel was testing experimental weapon systems that pushed the boundaries of human technology. In the past month alone, she had destroyed 7 Council installations using weapons that had existed only as theoretical concepts a year ago. "Captain," reported her weapons officer, "the new plasma lance is showing excellent results. We can penetrate Council shields with 80% less energy expenditure than conventional weapons." "Excellent," Williams replied. "Transmit all data to Fleet Command for distribution to other vessels." This was perhaps humanity's greatest advantage over their enemies. While Council species jealously guarded their technological secrets, even from their allies, humans shared everything immediately and completely. Every innovation, every tactical discovery, every piece of intelligence was distributed across the entire fleet within hours. The result was a military force that evolved and improved at an unprecedented rate. Ships that had been built just months ago were already being upgraded with technologies that had not existed when their construction began. Back at Titan Base, Hayes received the daily intelligence briefing from her staff. The numbers told a story of systematic victory that would have been impossible to imagine. Just 2 years ago, Council military strength has been reduced by 78%, reported the intelligence chief. Their shipbuilding capacity has been reduced by 85%. Their ability to project force beyond their core worlds has been essentially eliminated. "Resistance?" Hayes asked, "minimal and decreasing. Most Council species are focusing on defending their homeworlds rather than supporting offensive operations. Several species have begun independent peace overtures." Hayes considered this information carefully. Humanity was winning the war more completely than anyone had dared to hope. But victory brought its own challenges. What would humanity do with a galaxy that feared them? How would they prevent the cycle of revenge that had driven their own war from repeating in future generations? "Prepare communication to all fleet commanders," Hayes decided. Phase 3 will commence in 30 days. All ships are to return to designated staging areas for final preparations. The final phase of humanity's war was about to begin. When it was complete, the galaxy would be a very different place. The age of the Galactic Council would be over, and the age of humanity's watch would begin. In the depths of space, human ships continued their relentless patrol. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were ensuring that survival would never again be threatened. The hunt that had begun with a single ship attacking a single enemy vessel had grown into a campaign that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And it would continue until every potential threat had been neutralized, no matter how long that took. 3 years after the first alien ships appeared over Earth, Council Prime Director Nexulos sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that chronicled the systematic destruction of everything he had built. The Galactic Council, which had dominated known space for over 1,000 cycles, was dying. Not in a single decisive battle, but through 1,000 cuts that had slowly bled away their power, their confidence, and their hope. The humans had not just defeated them, they had made victory look effortless. Every strategic position, every fortified world, every last-ditch defensive line had fallen to an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Worse, the humans had begun targeting not just military assets, but the fundamental infrastructure that held Council space together. Shipyards had been reduced to floating debris. Research facilities had been evacuated or destroyed. Trade routes had been abandoned as too dangerous to patrol. The great civilization that had once spanned half the galaxy was now reduced to a collection of isolated worlds, each one wondering if human ships would appear in their skies tomorrow. A soft chime announced an incoming communication. Nexulos almost ignored it. Most communications these days brought only news of fresh disasters. But something about the signal pattern was different. It was coming from a source he did not recognize, using encryption codes that had been classified for centuries. The holographic projector activated, showing the scarred face of a human male. Behind him, the bridge of a human warship showed the controlled activity of a vessel in combat operations. The human appeared to be middle-aged by the standards of his species, with gray beginning to show in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many difficult decisions. "Director Nexulos," the human said, his voice carrying no trace of triumph or malice, just cold professionalism. "I am Captain Rodriguez of the United Earthship Vengeance. I believe it is time we talked." "You wish to offer terms for surrender?" Nexulos asked, hope flickering in his voice for the first time in months. "No." Rodriguez replied simply, his expression unchanging. "I am here to explain what is going to happen next." The display behind Rodriguez shifted, showing a tactical map of Council space. Red markers indicated human fleet positions, hundreds of them positioned at every major system, every trade route, every strategic choke point that mattered. The scope of human deployment was staggering. They had not just defeated the Council, they had replaced them as the dominant military power in this entire region of the galaxy. As of this moment, Rodriguez continued in the same calm tone, "Every Council world is under human observation. Your fleets have been scattered or destroyed. Your trade networks have collapsed. Your member species are beginning to question whether the Council can protect them. Some have already begun negotiations for separate peace agreements." Nexulos felt his multiple hearts sinking. The humans had not just won. They had achieved something no military strategist would have thought possible. They had conquered a galactic civilization with fewer than 200 ships. "What do you want from us?" Nexulos whispered, his voice barely audible. Rodriguez's expression did not change, but something in his eyes suggested he had been waiting for this question. "We want you to remember this moment. Every species that was part of the Council, every world that supported the invasion of Earth, every individual who thought humanity would submit. We want you all to remember what happened when you decided to hunt us." "You are not going to destroy us?" Nexulos asked, genuinely confused. In his experience, victorious species either enslaved their enemies or eliminated them entirely. "Destroy you? No." Rodriguez smiled for the first time in the conversation, and for the first time Nexulos saw something truly frightening in the human's expression. "We are going to do something much worse. We are going to let you live." The implications hit Nexulos like a physical blow. Humanity was not interested in conquest or control in any traditional sense. They were interested in creating a cautionary tale that would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. "The Galactic Council is dissolved as of this transmission," Rodriguez announced with the authority of someone who had the power to enforce his words. "Each member species will return to their homeworlds and remain there. Any attempt to rebuild military forces beyond what is necessary for local defense, form new alliances for aggressive purposes, or expand beyond your home systems will be considered an act of war against humanity." "And if we refuse to accept these terms?" Nexulos asked, though he already suspected what the answer would be. Rodriguez's smile widened slightly, and Nexulos understood why other species had learned to fear these creatures. Director, over the past 3 years we have demonstrated that we can find you anywhere in the galaxy, strike at any target we choose, defeat any defense you can mount. Do you really believe we cannot enforce compliance with these terms? The transmission ended, leaving Nexulos alone with the wreckage of his civilization. Outside the windows of his chamber, he could see human ships patrolling the system that had once been the heart of galactic power. They moved with the casual confidence of predators in territory they now owned completely. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as human. Commanders delivered identical messages to the leadership of every species that had participated in the invasion of Earth. Former Council species were returning to their homeworlds, their dreams of galactic dominance shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive just 3 years ago. But the humans were not done with their demonstration. Over the following months, they systematically destroyed every piece of military infrastructure in former Council space. Shipyards were reduced to scrap metal. Weapons factories were dismantled piece by piece. Military academies were closed permanently. Research facilities that had developed advanced weapons were converted to civilian purposes or abandoned entirely. The message was clear and unmistakable. The capacity for organized interstellar warfare was being removed from this region of the galaxy, not through conquest or occupation, but through the systematic elimination of the tools needed to threaten other worlds. Some species attempted resistance. The warlike Korthak hegemony tried to hide military assets in asteroid fields and gas giant moons. Human ships found them all within weeks, guided by intelligence networks that seemed to have penetrated every level of alien society. The crystalline beings of Nexus Prime attempted to develop new weapons, technologies in secret laboratories hidden in the cores of dead worlds. Human raiders appeared as if from nowhere, eliminating the facilities with surgical precision while leaving the civilian populations completely unharmed. The aquatic deep ones tried to form a new alliance with species from outside the former Council territory. The aliens they contacted received visits from human diplomatic ships carrying recordings of Council fleet battles and a simple message: this is what happens to those who threaten humanity. Choose your alliances carefully. Within 2 years, the transformation was complete. The former Council species had been reduced to their homeworlds, their military capabilities eliminated, their capacity for expansion removed. But they were alive, their populations intact, their cultures preserved. It was a more complete victory than simple conquest could ever have achieved, because it was also more permanent. Conquered populations eventually rebelled. Occupied territories eventually demanded independence. But species that had been systematically disarmed and left to contemplate their powerlessness would remember the lesson for generations. In the space between the stars, human ships continued their eternal patrol. They were no longer hunters seeking prey. They had become shepherds, watching over a galaxy that had learned the cost of threatening the innocent. The warning had been given long ago by Ambassador Kexathul: threaten humanity, and they would hunt you forever. The Galactic Council had mocked that warning, dismissed it as the ravings of a primitive observer who did not understand the realities of galactic politics. Now, every species in known space understood that forever was exactly as long as humanity intended to keep their promise. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity's watch had begun, and it would last until the stars themselves burned out, ensuring that never again would any species have to face the choice between submission and extinction that the aliens had offered to Earth. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity not because they were cruel, but because they were patient. They did not forget. They did not forgive, and they never ever stopped watching.